Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I ask you to please welcome to the ring our special guest for the special Q&A, Mr. Anthony Carelli!
Oh, it's okay. Cut the music! No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Good, thank you.
Let me go over this together. They gave me the taller seat because I'm short. That's what it was?
No, I actually,
All right, hold on. You got beer in here. Okay, we're good. Who's in charge of props for this thing?
here, come on.
Hey! There we go. All right, Anthony, really quickly, first of all, we thank you for coming on. You got a very busy schedule. You're traveling all over the world. You recently are working on this kind of developmental thing with the TV. You're also a sports commentator because you're on the Score, and you're doing the Aftermath show. You also do commentary for judo around the world, and you've recently been given the opportunity, the title of representing Judo Canada. You're now the face of Judo Canada, so I think I'm going to start off with the first question. Yes, give a big round of applause. I think I'm going to start off the Q&A with my first question because I know you're very passionate and you love judo and martial arts. So tell us a little bit how you got to that, getting this position.
Thank you. Yeah, it happened a couple weeks ago, and it's a tremendous honor. I love judo. It's really my first love. A lot of people sometimes, when I'm, they say, "Oh, you were a professional wrestler. That's amazing that you got to do something you love." And I'm always like, I love judo, And I did this for a living, but judo was really my first love. And anyway, it's funny, you can have these perfectly placed wrestling fans sometimes, and it really helps out. So there's a gentleman, Mark Pickering, who works for the International Judo Federation as I believe he's a media director, and he's a huge wrestling fan. And he follows me on Twitter because I'm a wrestler, and saw that I was posting a lot of stuff about coaching judo here, taking kids to tournaments, and he took that information back to the International Judo Federation and said, "Look, there's a guy here who's, I don't want to say famous, but in their eyes, I was on television and it has a lot of value for some people." And they said he's promoting judo. And I was invited as a guest, and everyone at the IJF was really nice. I did a little commentary, just as a step-in kind of guest, and they were really impressed. And I'm like, well, I was just kind of doing the stuff we do from professional wrestling. So professional wrestling commentary is very interesting because they always try and sell the live event. So they always want to tell people, you got to be here, you got to see it live. And a lot of the judo commentators don't do that. They're just calling the action. And so, thanking the sponsors and once in a while saying, if you're just joining us and that kind of stuff. So I brought the broadcasting side as well as the knowledge of the sport. So they were impressed and they were happy. So I've been working with the IJF, and then Judo Canada is like, hey, why is this Canadian guy working for the IJF and we're not using him ourselves? So I think that's what happened. But either way, it's going to be fun.
Excellent. All right, we're going to give the floor to you, the fans out there, to ask anything you want. So if you have a question for Anthony Carelli, just put up your hand and I come to you. Give me the mic so you can ask away. This little guy right there, he's going to be the first guy to ask a question. Somebody come on over here. Come on, step up here. All right. What's your name?
Eric.
All right, Eric. What's your question for Anthony?
When did you start wrestling?
How? Yeah. Well, you see, I was going to judo. I was doing judo, and I went to go to Montreal one time to have a look at the Canadian National Training Center. And then once I was there, I met this guy named Andy Bordeaux, who was an Olympic wrestler. And he did judo and wrestling. So he invited me to come to the wrestling practice because he knew next year I was going to go to Concordia. And he said, would you consider wrestling? Because I wrestled in high school here at Philip Pocock. And so I went to wrestling practice to meet the coach. And the coach, I said, may I practice today? He said, sure. And he looked around at everyone training and goes, go warm up with that guy. And just pointed to one guy. And that guy, to this day, is one of my good friends and is the son of Don Koloff, the arena we're in. And all of a sudden, after getting to know him and talking, I found out his father was a professional wrestler, and his father had a wrestling school. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, Good Lord, my destiny has found me.
Woodbridge, right? UFO.
The school at the time was in Woodbridge, that's right. And then the school I trained at, they moved to Markham. So my training was always in Markham, yeah. Good question.
All right, anybody else got a question right now? Yes, right here. This is. All right, what's your name? Brian. Brian, what's your question?
What was your first match?
Oh,
Your very first match.
you know what? Here, hold on a minute. Hey guys, if you guys have a question, instead of having Phil Donahue run around, just come to the ropes, and we'll just come to the ropes instead of him going all the way up there. My very first match. So, I was training at UFO, Universal Federation of Professional Wrestling in Markham. And one of Don Koloff's previous students, his name was Rico Montana. So he saw me wrestling and saw me improving. And he actually went to a guy, there was a company called Ring Wars. And Ring Wars was an Ontario independent company. And Chris Drury was the owner. And Rico Montana said, hey, I got a guy who's been training for about a year. And, I'd like to have a match with him. I actually had a match with Rico Montana, so that's the answer. But that's how it came about. And it was in Orangeville, Ontario. And I was nervous. And it was fun. It was awesome. It was the beginning, right? Next question. There was another one here. Here you go.
If there's one lesson that you've learned over the course of your life and career, what would that be? Could you share with us?
Oh, wow. A lesson, yeah. Well, one lesson is in time, this too shall pass. And there's so much travel with wrestling. It's when there was both brands are on the same show, it was 5 days a week. So you're traveling every day. Except, I was home for a day and a half. And with all that travel, there's bound to be mess-ups, delayed flights, car problems, mostly delayed flights because you miss one's late, you miss the connection, and you're upset and you're tired, but you're going to get there. In time, this inconvenience shall also pass. And so to not get angry and have a little more patience. That's a very good question. Okay. Anybody else? Question, anything?
I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on Jim Quinn having fired from Power.
Well, it's funny. I was talking about that today because some people on social media, they posted or they tagged me with the news that he got fired, like I would take pleasure from it. But it brings me no pleasure that he lost his job. I mean, he has sentenced himself to a poor legacy with no respect from his peers. And that's enough punishment in himself. As a boat travels through the water, it leaves a wake behind it, and he's left a wake of negativity, and that's really his own punishment, is himself. But I don't think about him enough to wish bad upon him. It's a waste of energy, but it's not the first time. I think he's been fired from every single company, so yeah. I think so, yeah.
Sensei, my name is Mike. What's your go-to judo move?
Oh, wow. My go-to judo move, even to this day, even though, as you get know, it's drop down seonagi. I used to do it, man, I did it so much as a teenager. I needed knee surgery in high school because I did it so much. But I actually did a tournament 2 years ago, just on a whim. I was feeling good because I was a vegan for 1 month. And I swear, you do feel good. I just love a steak, God. But anyway, so I jumped into a tournament without really training for it, and I was still able to call upon drop down Tsunagi. So for anyone that doesn't know, you grab your opponent and you turn like this and you drop down. And you kind of hopefully go underneath them so they trip up and go over. And man, I've probably done it 100,000 times. So it becomes, ingrained and automatic. That's an interesting judo question. Anybody else on a question? We have time? Yes. You can yell it if you want.
What's up, Anthony?
Hey.
Everybody here. My name is Sean, and I don't really thank you personally at some point throughout the night, but on behalf of everybody here, thank you for opening your doors to us once again.
Thank you.
This is not a question, just some gratitude from all of us, because we're in for a great night of wrestling, guys.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So actually, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you guys a little something that I don't even know if it's smart to say, but I'll say it anyway. So I've been speaking with a company called Bio Accelerator, and they are a company based out of Medellin, Colombia, and they do the stem cell injections, and they've been doing them for RVD, and Brian Cage hurt his back, and they did that for him. I say Nash, Rey Mysterio, and a lot of the guys are having incredible results. So I'm going to go down there. It's looking like January or February. I'm going to get 5 levels of my lower back injected with stem cells in the discs to hopefully regrow some of the discs and just give me a little more space so that we're not hitting nerves. And I have a bad back. And I had my neck fused, but the disc. What happens when you get your neck fused is that the disc above and below end up taking more of the workload, and then they'll deteriorate faster. So my neck was bad enough that I could have got a triple fusion because the disc below, if you know medical stuff, it's a C7T1. So just, that big bone that sticks out there, the back base of your neck, kind of just right above that. And that one could have been operated on as well, but if they did, then I would not have been able to come back. So they left that. So that's going to have to be addressed one day. But we're also going to put stem cells in that and try and regrow some of that disc tissue as well. And if the results are as good as I hope they'll be, I might go wrestle for another year or two. And I'll call up the WWE first and give them the first right of refusal because I'm loyal to them. And but if they're not interested, I'm going to go to anywhere, Impact, AEW, and I'm going to go wrestle for 1 or 2 years. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And you know what? It would be great for the students because when you're there and you're right beside Triple H and you're right beside Vince, you know exactly what they're industry leaders, they're influencers, they're everything in the business. So to hear exactly what they want, I can now come home and tell my students exactly what the man at the top of the mountain is looking for, and it's just going to make the curriculum here that much more, appropriate. Let's do one more. A couple more questions, sir. Don't be shy. My favorite match, you said? Probably, yeah. Jax, you tell me a question here?
No, not me.
Oh, okay.
Brian, Brian's got a question.
Yes.
Is there any rumors that NXT North coming to Mississauga?
Well, that was my intention from before we even broke ground here, was to one day be a Canadian developmental territory. There's been a lot of talk going on, and I was kind of told once that it goes by market, and the market is North America. And Canada's not substantial enough to have a separate market. And the developmental territories are based on markets. So you'd have one market in Europe, and one market in Asia, and one market in Australia. One potentially developmental. They want to open developmentals in either China or Japan, or both, Australia, and obviously they have NXT UK, and maybe one day in the Middle East as well. But Canada is kind of in the back of the line in terms of being a market because, our population's smaller than those places. But we've had the Canadian tryout this year, and they know we have a very substantial talent pool and the facilities here, and we're going to continue to figure out a way to have a working relationship. It may not be a WWE developmental, but we will be working with them. And this year we should have 2 or 3 more signings coming up this year from here with NXT UK. So they definitely like what we're putting out there, and we'll continue to work on the relationship. Okay, oh, there's one. Yeah. Right.
What's the worst injury you had to either compete in judo with and in pro wrestling?
Well, it's funny because the injuries in judo, I always healed from them. I was also younger, but the injuries in pro wrestling, they're kind of still here. Umaga one time caught me in like a crossbody and did this thing where he spins around and flips me and lets me go. And when I woke up, I looked at my shoulder and it was like an iceberg sticking out, a huge bone there. That wasn't good. But the worst one that still plagues me today, I was wrestling Sheamus live in, I believe, Manchester. And I was in the corner and he came running at me and I moved out of the way. And I was always taught you want to move out of the way at the last split second. And his elbow caught, see this piece of your ear right here? It kind of plugs the hole if you push it. I think it had tragus or something. Anyway, he caught that with his elbow. And I was awake, but I was out on my feet, I guess is what you'd call it. And Rip Rogers, my old coach, used to always say, don't wear running shoes, you're going to break your ankle. And I listened to him always. I didn't wear running shoes, except I was on the road 3 weeks prior, and my wrestling boot broke. So we went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and we got Nike Air Max. So I wrestled in them, and they felt great. They were so agile and light, and I felt so athletic. But, wrestling boots are kind of clunky. Anyway, 3 weeks later, I get hit in the ear, and I have to go wide to stabilize myself because I'm going to fall live on TV. And when I fall, it was this ankle, I just snapped my ankle. I was looking at the bottom of my shoe, and I thought it was broken, but it was all the ligaments in my ankle. And I stepped again, snap, another one. And then, we're live on TV. We have a match to finish. So I get up, and I start doing the Cobra. And then I lose my balance again, step again, one more snap. Like the last string in the elevator. And that was it. That was every 6 months or so, knock on wood, I guess, I roll it and re-injure it. There's almost no ligaments left in that ankle. So that one's pretty bad. That one's a lifer.